Well, Rob, it's been a while since we said game day this
Yeah.
weekend, but it is game day this weekend and you're back. How excited are you now?
You get that same feeling though. It's excited and nervous, and it's funny. I always say as a coach, pre-season's kind of an incredible time because you get to do all the fun bits, which is work with the players, try new things, see them physically develop, run through your plays, and you don't have the pressure of having to actually see it all come together on the weekend. But you can only do that for so long, and the one thing that the period's been now, it's been just way too long to be a period away from rugby. So I think we're all desperate to see the game back. Obviously, unfortunately, it won't be in front of a crowd, and we'd love to have Sandy Park rocking. Imagine what it would have been like here on Saturday in conditions like this. But as it is, we feel we're well set. The players look good. But as I say, every year, proof of the pudding will be in our performance at the weekend. But I don't feel we could have done much more than to be where we are right now.
The mood's been really upbeat since you've returned from stage 1 training and that. And the players and you have been talking about, this is 10 weeks now where you could really make something special in your life.
And that's what you've got to do. You've got to embrace it. I think some people have still not quite got their heads around it. When we start this weekend against Leicester, 10 weekends from this weekend, some team is going to be playing in the Premiership final. We obviously want that to be us. But other clubs do as well. So are we going to embrace this more than everybody else? Or those are our decisions. They're in our hands. And if we don't get excited about that, if as a player, as a coach, you can't go, 10 weekends time, someone's going to be playing at Twickenham. If you can't get excited about that, then there's something wrong with you. If all you want to see is all the problems and how many games of rugby they're going to be played and what are the repercussions of this, repercussions of that, how are we going to do this, how are we going to do this? If that's all you want to talk about, you'll never actually see what it is. And it's a fantastic opportunity to go out there and achieve something that a team will never achieve again. A team will, I hope, a team will never have to win a season like we've had this season. I hope that would be the case. And I hope you never have this extended period away from rugby. And I certainly hope that some guys will have the experience of playing a Premiership game of rugby in front of zero crowd. We never want that to happen again, but it's still an experience to say you've had and you've triumphed over. And I think those are all things we need to make sure we embrace.
How different a Premiership are you going back into? In squads, in standards of club, how different is it going to be?
I think everyone's thinking it's going to be hugely different. I don't know if it is. Why should it change all that much? Does the DNA of a club change within 3 months, 4 months, 5 months? If you're a coaching group or a management group and you change that of a club that's been established for years and years and years in the Premiership, you've done a remarkable job. So I think a lot of what we know and a lot of what we see from players will be relatively similar. I think what might be different is that they may have different aims, and so they may change some of their approaches. And let's face it, a 5% change in approach is a relatively big change, but I can't see it being all that different. I can't see a squad that was doing well last year suddenly for no reason not doing okay. And likewise, I can't see a team that actually were maybe not quite finding their way suddenly seeing the light. I don't think it naturally works like that. I think you need games for that to happen. I think you need to play and you need to grow and you need to do things together. And that's one thing that's not been there. There's not been games. There's not been those challenges of your next performance, your next battle that really wields you and moulds you and forges you as a side. And so I kind of think, I'm not going to say we'll be back to square one with teams, because of course we won't. There's been a break and there's been a chance to work on things and there's been an input and an outflowing of players. But I do kind of think that on the whole we know where we stand. I mean, I'd like to think we know what our culture is and what our strengths and weaknesses are, and we've worked hard at our strengths and we've tried to nullify our weaknesses. And I would think most teams feel roughly the same. They know what their strengths are and they'll be trying to make them super strengths and trying to nullify their weaknesses. But on the whole, you're still the rugby club or the team you were. And I think that would be the interesting thing. I think it'd be interesting to see whether there is as big a change as people seem to be thinking there will be.
You like to start with a bang, but you've done all you can. You've ticked a lot of boxes, you said, in-house games. You've got new players up to speed much better than you would normally in a pre-season.
Yeah.
You're in a good place, I'd imagine.
It feels like we are. And as I've said to a few people, I think a lot of people are trying to make a huge issue of the weather. Well, you play nearly every year. You play a pre-season game in August. I don't quite get where some of the fuss is coming from. What would you normally do? You normally play a pre-season game in August. The season's been pushed back a little bit to sometimes later in September, so you might have them kind of early September. But we'll be in September in 2 weeks' time. That's when most of the games are going to happen in September and October. We play in September and October every single year. What's the difference? What will be different is that the final, if you get there, and semi-finals are going to be played in October, when normally that you could start to expect a bit of rain, a bit of wind potentially. You don't normally have that around final time in June. So actually, it isn't going to be the games now that are different. It's actually going to be the bigger games that might feel a little bit different. But you've got to get there first, and just like every other year, our intention to use these first block of games is to make sure we get there. And as we tick those boxes, we'll start to look beyond that. And we'll start to talk about semi-finals and finals, etc. But we're not going to look that far until we start knocking over a few points, because we're not that far ahead of the rest of the field for us to put ourselves under some pressure by not turning up and playing well.
You said teams won't change their DNA too much. Leicester might, though, because of new coaches coming in, a lot of new players. What are you expecting from them, or can you not expect anything? You've got to look after yourself.
I wouldn't see. I don't think Leicester will necessarily change their DNA. Then they'd probably try and refine it. And so that's the thing, you know. I think clubs who are strong. I mean, don't forget, Leicester have won an awful lot of competitions and been a very strong club. I think their ethos and what they're about will still remain relatively strong. You know, Geordie Murphy's still there and involved. You know, Steve Borthwick knows what the strengths and weaknesses of Leicester have been over a number of years. I think they'll try and re-establish maybe a different way of playing. And the one thing that might make Leicester more of a difference than other sides is we don't know whether they're now looking longer term, and this is part of a bigger rebuilding and change process. And they are looking at this now as this is the block of games where they use it to change themselves. This is the block where we're going to have week by week experience. We're going to see our players for 80 minutes. We're going to see where we can develop and change and enhance ourselves as a side. So they may be one of the more changed teams, but I don't know. I haven't been part of their training, and I haven't been part of the process they've been going through. And so all we can do is prepare ourselves for what we know have been the threats of Leicester in the past, and prepare ourselves to look to be as good as we can be when we've got the ball, and have as much influence in the game as we can have.